So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever and whenever you're listening. Welcome to the Perspectives on Leadership podcast, brought to you by Fire Engineering. I'm your host, Steve Shaw, and as a Deputy Fire Chief for Jupiter Fire Rescue and a proud member of the FDIC and the Fire Engineering family, my deepest gratitude goes out to you for choosing to invest your time with us today. My consistent, intentional mission since the first day of this podcast continues to be the same: to deliver real-world, applicable leadership insights that elevate our fire service. So as I mentioned last month, my goal this year going into 2026 is to elevate this podcast even further. So I listened to all the episodes, reviewing what sparked the best conversations and the most actionable takeaways for the listener, and reformatted the questions to dive deeper. I want to make sure that we're doing our best to truly provide the audience tangible, deployable nuggets to immediately use wherever you serve. So let's dive in. The inspiration for this podcast came from a conversation I was having with Alex Seaman, who is a captain with the City of Tamarac Fire Rescue, and it's located just outside Fort Lauderdale for geography purposes. So he and I are cut from the same cloth, Alex and I think that'll be obvious as we start to get to talking here. But as we were on the road one day talking, we were talking about a variety of things like search and rescue, training, our teams, our love for the fire service, all that stuff, right? And somewhere through the conversation, he had mentioned his recent experience with a grab he had. And I kind of dove into it, asked him his experiences, just, what worked, what didn't work, what he was expecting, and all that stuff. And as our conversation deepened, it turns out Alex had like multiple grabs through his tenure with Tamarac. I'm like, multiple? What the hell? So, down the rabbit hole we go, right? And it had me thinking of the training we do, right? We train for situations that we may never find ourselves in. We train with equipment we may never get to use on a real incident. So, how do we maintain that motivation to train, knowing that fact? How do we inspire, empower, excite our people to train and prepare, given all the other things that are going on in the firehouse, the politics and the good days and the bad days and the drama and all that kind of stuff? How do we maintain that? So, I figured, let's have Alex on and just let's stop talking and just bring him onto the podcast and start just opening this up, right? So this month's episode, we welcome a devoted husband, proud father, and a dedicated captain with Tamarac Fire Rescue, Alex Seaman, who brings 16 years of commitment to the fire service. He's known for challenging the status quo. He prioritizes integrity and accountability, ensuring the best outcomes for the citizens and his team. He's a graduate of classes such as One Bad Tour and the Georgia Flames, and a recipient of the Firefighter of the Year Award in his organization. He also serves as the wellness coordinator. So outside the firehouse, he also enjoys surfing, traveling, and innovative training with the colleagues at his station, Station 36, and showing the fire service that this is not just a career, but part of his core identity. So Alex, thank you for waking up early with this morning me and joining me on this podcast, man.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very pleased to be here and I'm very humbled for sure.
Well, this is going to be a good conversation, but let me start it off with a situational question. That'll kind of get us going. So let's start this off. You're going to work. You're reporting to duty at your firehouse, right? What excites you most as you're making that drive in?
Well, I got quite a long drive, so there's a lot of things that kind of are packed into that drive. But obviously, it's making sure that I serve the citizens to the best ability when I get there and make a difference. Hopefully, catching a job, making a grab, making a real difference in someone's life. But I would say, honestly, it's my guys. I know I'm going to get into the firehouse. I'm going to eat great. My driver engineer wins best chef of the year every year. We're going to train hard, hopefully for a very long time. We're going to put each other in tough situations. We're going to laugh our butts off. We're going to suffer in workouts. And, when we do that every shift, it's just like compounding camaraderie so that when things go bad, we're ready to go as a team. And just knowing that in that drive, it gets me fired up, even after so long. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of compounding camaraderie. I like that. And so, let me ask you this. For you, like, what you got you into the fire service? What's your origin story? Where does that come from?
It's pretty simple. I mean, honestly, I just liked to do the right thing when I was growing up, and I like to help people. You know, I didn't really like to go against the grain and get in trouble and stuff, even though I go against the grain to the status quo in the fire service. But that's to do the right thing. I just always played by the rules. I definitely didn't want a desk job. You know, I wanted a team atmosphere, and that's just what the fire service has. You know, pretty simple, but I'm glad it landed me to the fire service.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, when I'm preparing for these podcasts now, what I've tried to do these days is reach out to people that know the guest is going to be on here, right? So I did make a couple phone calls, just so you know. So one person I spoke to two main people, right? I spoke to Basil over in Orlando, and I asked him about One Bad Tour, to what that was like. You know, like who gets into that class, who's applying for this class, and you graduated from that class, correct? The One Bad Tour.
Yes, sir.
So I was asking him about what that looks like, and he says that on average, like 369 people apply per class over the last 10 classes, and they take 40. So one, you should be pretty proud that you're with that solid core group. And Basil, you know, from what I understand, he puts on a phenomenal class. That's a phenomenal class, and we'll open that up too. But the other person I spoke to was Max Lashin, who works with your organization, right? He's a lieutenant over there, and me and Max, I dig Max. He's just into the job. We've trained together. He helped me out last year in May at a class we did over at Palm Beach State College for forcible entry and SAWS, you know, a South Florida-based class where we just did a ton of training all day. He's in it, right? And he's also the president of the South Florida Fools. And he's always training. He's always doing something, right? So I gravitate towards that. But I asked him, I'm like, hey, man, tell me a little bit about Alex. What do I need to know about Alex, right? So I want to just help you. I wrote down a few things. I want you to hear these. He goes, dude, Alex is all in. He is all in. He wants to be in gear all day. He goes, that guy is fully bunkered out no matter what call comes in, whether it's a fire, car fire, dumpster fire, or a fire alarm. He's fully bunked out, like top to bottom. Like there's no like mid ground. He says that he would do this job for free. He loves it so much he would just do it for free. What really spoke to me was like when we were talking, he goes, man, his crew is dialed in. He goes, you know, Max focuses on his, or he says that you focus on your crew, you get them motivated. And he says that you help basically turn your team into one of those go-to teams. So, and I'm not trying to butter you up or anything, but I think those are powerful words. So when you hear that from a guy like Max, how do you respond to that? What goes through your mind, man?
That's pretty heavy. I mean, that's pretty heavy. I will say, I appreciate those kind words. It didn't happen overnight, for sure. You know, I put a lot of consistent time into getting myself better, getting my crew the way I want to. It's just, like you said, compounding camaraderie. I like to use this term, this saying, if you build it, they will come. You know, I feel like over many, many years of putting in the work to train, to get better, that I have finally reached the point where I have a crew that wants to work with me. And this crew hands down, they're the best. You know, when a call comes down, chief knows, hey, the boys are coming. We're going to make it better. You know, I've been fortunate to be first due in other zones other than my district, you know, and second due territory or whatnot. And we've made a difference in those calls. So, you know, just being able to push ourselves to limits like that the citizens need us to push to, it makes a difference when we show up on scene. And that's what the citizens are calling us for, to make a difference. And I feel like we don't just show up ready to go. It's the back, you know, play and the working and the training and the really putting in that hard, consistent work.
Right. It doesn't really just happen. Just doesn't happen by accident, right?
No. Not at all. I mean, it's simple. It's leading by example. I mean, I set expectations early. My crew set expectations early. You know, we all agree on doing the right thing And that's the only way to do a job, to do the right thing. Everyone at my fire department, they know how I work. They know I want to train. They know I want to do the right thing. They know we're gonna push ourselves, and just that consistency over years is just it gets us to a point where we show up and we know what to do. Obviously, we have our failures, and we do, take lessons from those failures to make ourselves better. And touching on my guys, I don't like to say that my guys work for me. I work for them. I've gone against the grain in the fire service so many years to do the right thing, to not do the status quo, to not be complacent, not sit on the recliners the whole shift and be negative. We train all the time, and it pays off. It really does. It's just, if you build it, they will come. I like to say that.
So, you said a couple of things there, and you said expectations. And I know I've, on this podcast several times, I've said it, but I think it deserves repeating that, when I look back at my career, the times that I have failed are times where I failed to set expectations. Every time I realize, man, why did this bad situation happen, is because in some way, shape, or form, I didn't set the expectations. So that idea of setting those expectations and following through is a very powerful thing, right? And the other thing is, you talk about your crew in such a way which I gravitate towards, because you're obviously very proud of them. You're proud of your crew. You focus on them. And we're indoctrinated into the idea of teams in the fire service. From when we start in the fire service to the fire academy, to going to school and being in cohorts together, to getting hired on the job, maybe special ops teams, and we gravitate towards those teams, right? But I remember that when I was working for Fort Lauderdale, one of the practices I would do is I would look at the lineup every morning, right? I would look at all the stations and all the people of the stations. And, I think that everybody could use the same experience. You go through the lineup and you look at the trucks and you look at the people and you're like, man, look at, Tower 2 today. Man, these guys are dialed in, man. They're the mitigators. If there's a problem, they're going to solve it. Then you glance over at the hazmat station. You're like, holy cow, man, if we get a call, if a nuclear explosion happens, these guys are going to cover it. They're going to figure it out, right? On the opposite end of that coin, you have those situations where you're looking at the calendar, you're like, oh man, these guys are working today. Like, we'll keep it positive, right? But it's one of those things where, as I'm talking to the audience here, when your bosses are looking at that lineup and they look at your truck, what do they think? What goes through their mind, right? I think about that a lot. I think about those get it done folk, those teams that we look at and then gravitate towards, go, man, we're having a guy, let's say a new guy struggling. Well, what do we do with him? Send him over to that station because we want to send him to your crew because we want him to get dialed in. Hey, there's a roof that needs to be opened up. We need to call in a second alarm. All right, we'll make sure we pick engine, 36, send them over because they know what they're doing. Those kind of things, right? So I think about that idea of when you look at that lineup, who are our go-to people? And it sounds like you're intentional about that. You want to create an environment where when your bosses look, they're like, "Yep, we're gonna make sure they get there."
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, I want to keep this idea of training going. I was talking to Rob Ramirez, who works with me in training over in Jupiter, and Rob and I we're sharing stuff constantly. And he passed along a podcast recently with Sean Ryan. It was a Sean Ryan show. And he was, I think it was episode, and I wrote it down here, 257, where he's interviewing Jocko Willink. And about at the 40-minute mark, he makes this interesting comment that Rob and I kind of go back and forth on. The comment was, and we all know Jocko Willink. He's just like, now he's this SEAL. He does this training, extreme ownership. We all know him, right? But it was interesting because the comment he made was he didn't fire his enemy with the weapon until 13 years in. And we talked about that for a second. And it reminded me that, as we open up this podcast with, is that we may train for things. We're training for things that we may never, ever do. We're training with tools and equipment and things that we may never get to use during the course of a career. And so let's chat about that for a second. How do you maintain the motivation at a firehouse? How do you maintain the velocity, the motivation, the drive to want to keep training, knowing that we never do this? What do you
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, that was quite a long episode. I definitely
Yeah,
think
it
someone
was
should
very
listen to
long.
that. Sure. It was lengthy. Um, but yeah, when we get onto this job, you could have a grab your first shift, or you could have a grab your 30th year right before you retire, or none at all. You could catch a lot of fires early on and not catch a fire until a couple of years on. So you never know what you're going to get. So you have to be ready. The citizens expect us to show up and be ready. Just like Jocko and his crew, when he went there, they expected them to lay the law down and be ready, even though there was no enemies prior to that, 13 years prior to that, but they trained, because guess what? You never know if it's going to happen. I respect my guys, and in return, they respect me. So I listen. I know they are hungry. Okay. What I ask, what do you want to do today? Not what I want to do. It's what they want to do. My guys are running the show. I'm just like a support member. I'm just like there to feed them. They're hungry. I just need to be there and give them what they want. Unfortunately, I see, way too many times I see new members come on and not being fed the information and training that they want and need from their company officers. And, that's pretty disheartening, because I've been there before. It's a punch in the gut. I know from personal experience, because as a young fireman, you expect your lieutenant, your captain to have the knowledge that you want to hear, those war stories. You want to know their expectations. You want to see how they stretch their lines, how their search is done, or how they force a door. But unfortunately, there's those company officers that are out there that they just don't give a damn, and they don't care for the citizens, and they come up with every excuse to not do this or not do that. And it's shameful. I mean, it makes us all look bad. I mean, again, going back to my guys, they're hungry. They want to train. They want to get after it. So I consistently go, I like, don't do the same boring training. That really helps. If we're going to do the same boring training, it's going to become mundane. They're going to lose interest. They're going to get complacent. Then it will just bleed out into poor performance in the field. And that's not what we want. We want to be ready for our citizens. I like to do like out of the box training. Just use your imagination, right? Utilizes, everybody's like, oh, well, we don't have a training tower. We don't have a training facility. Use your imagination. Utilize the spaces that you have in your firehouse and in your district. So like, for instance, if your engine is parked right there in the bay and you have, one or two rescues or one or two battalion chiefs right to your left and right, like right there in the bay, utilize those as cars in the driveway. Stretch a line off your truck to either room, to the bunk room, to the gear room, whatever. Just stretch a line off that truck, simulating cars in the driveway, that swing of the door, where you're going to place the line. Once you get it, sizing up the door while you're stretching. Use your imagination. I mean, for instance, we have our gear room at our firehouse. There are 6 rows of gear storage, and they're all on wheels. So we have a large enough room where we now like make 1 or 2 bedroom apartments in that gear room. So no matter what we're doing, if we stretch a line and we go do a search in that room, me and the guys, we don't know what we're going into. Other members will make it, and it can change every time. We do a RIT drill. It's changed. We're never going into the same environment. That's how we're going to go into houses. We're not going into the same house that we always go to. We're always going into houses that are different layouts, different structures. I mean, just use your imagination. Residential fire alarms. I'm not going. My fireman, he's going to stretch a line at a residential fire alarm. That way, when we go there at 3 a.m., he knows how to stretch already. These are places that we're stretching at. We're stretching at real houses in our district. I'll make contact with the homeowner and say, hey, sorry, we're just practicing, taking this moment to practice, make sure there's nothing wrong in the house. Obviously, people are going to get upset there. Oh, we're just stretching lines, at people's house. Well, the homeowners, they appreciate it, where it's not like we're messing up their plants and doing this. Another thing I like to do is I go on Zillow. I don't know if anybody uses Zillow the way I do, but so I'll go on Zillow and look for homes for sale in my district. I'll click. It's a little time consuming, but you click through the photos and you'll see which homes are vacant. So nobody's living there. So what we'll do is my engine, my rescue, we'll get, pretend a call came in. We'll get to the truck. Engine will put on their gear, jump in the truck. The rescue just jumps in their truck because their gear's in the back. And we'll show up into that house, properly with the engine parked appropriately, making sure it's not obviously, tactically where it needs to be. If the engine will stretch a line, I'll do a 360. The rescue will get out, start bunking out, go to a window, a bedroom window. They're not going to obviously break the window, but they're going to be masking up, sizing up the structure, seeing what bedrooms are where. And then, that drill takes from showing up from air brake to cleanup. It's 10 minutes, and then we'll sit there for a while and talk about it. But that's just simple. You gotta think outside the box, and the guys love that. They love being out in the community. They love doing their job. If you cultivate a positive culture at your firehouse, your guys are going to follow. Obviously, I'm going to get made fun of from A shift again about this, but who cares? It's what matters about the citizens. The citizens matter. So, but when the tones break at our firehouse, no matter if it's a sick person or a fire, those boys start getting up and they start shooting and hollering and clapping, and they're ready to go. It's crazy. I love it. These guys are awesome, but that is going to carry on to when they get to wherever they're going, because they're going to give the proper treatment. They're going to give the proper respect to the citizen. Whatever the citizen needs at that moment, they're going to give an all-in attitude. And that's what we need. We need to give positive culture to everybody. If there's not a positive culture and there's just negativity at the firehouse, then when those negative firefighters get to Miss Smith's house, unfortunately, she's not going to get the proper care that she needs. It's not a good look for any of us. So it's just building a team the way you want to be respected as a citizen, as the fire department coming to your house. That's it.
So you said a lot there, and I like the idea of, and I think a lot of us do this. We all those that don't have the ability to have a training tower, training site, training facility, our stations become that, right? We transition our stations to what we need it to be, and anything we do in our territories, that's powerful, because our territories are our first response districts. They're our first due. So anything we're going to do out there, it makes sense, because these are the houses, these are the apartments, these are the territories, these are the businesses we're going to be running on. These are in our territory. So it's the best kind of training, and whether you get to punch holes in them or not, whether it's an acquired structure or just that what you just described, those are great reps to get, right? I think what spoke to me most right there in the last part of your conversation was that, okay, the engine's doing this, they're sizing out, they're pulling lines. Oh, and the rescue's doing this. So let's pause there for a second. And again, I just know what I know, you know what you know, right? When I was at my old firehouse training, it wasn't just the engine training and the rescue, okay, we're going to give them a break because they're busy. No. We were training as a team. The rescue, the engine, the crew, the entire crew. There was no separation. So I love that you said the rescue's doing this. And it wasn't even like a side thought. They're part of the scenario. And I would have to imagine that gets them a lot of buy-in. Am I correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They love it. They love to do that kind of stuff. It gets them off a medical call or whatever, it's different. And just our firehouse, say if the engine's coming back from the store or whatever, and the rescue's on a call, we'll pop in. Hey, we don't go on the radio. I just know the address. We'll pop in. Hey, you guys good? You guys need anything? Just a lending hand. I mean, the rescue does that for us too. When they're coming back from the hospital, and we're on a whatever kind of call, they'll pop in. So, I mean, everybody's like, why would you take time out of your day to go see what the rescue's doing to make sure they're okay? Well, listen, you never know, they might need an extra hand at that moment. Hey, grab an extra bag or whatever, or my fireman get an IV or whatever, which is, I'm not going to get the IV, we'll leave that to those guys. But it's, people think that's so crazy, but I think it's a culture that the guys want time together, and that time together will build a better environment and crew in the sticky situations. Just that time together will just build time to better serve these citizens when stuff hits the fan.
Yeah,
it really does.
I often say to people that the training we do transcends the content that's being taught. In other words, there's so much more that goes into training other than the content and material. It's important. It's why we do it. But it's all those things that happen while we're training. Like, and you mentioned everything, the getting to know each other, getting to know their strengths, their weaknesses, the bonding, all that kind of stuff. We're sweating, we're suffering together. There's so much that training does. And I think that in the moment, they may not be somewhat obvious, but afterwards, and you're seeing that, you're seeing the bonding and the joy people take in that, and the readiness that they have, right? Speaking about readiness, I do want to talk about like One Bad Tour and Georgia Flames. Walk me through your most recent grab. I want to talk a little bit of tactical, like what was that like?
Tactically, it was almost like you just got to get the work done. I mean, Georgia Flames and One Bad Tour, they teach the basics. Everybody thinks it's like super, super involved and stuff. Yeah, it's involved because you are tired. You are physically beat, but they teach the basics and they teach them under stress. So when you go to these stressful calls, yeah, okay, you go to a fire. Wow, that's stressful right there. Okay, you're making the push. And then, you hear there's a victim? Wow, that's even more stressful. So these classes from this compounding time of working under stress, it really, gives you the opportunity to work in those stressful environments without even thinking about it, without even like going like, oh my God, I got my gear on, it's heavy. Like, no, you don't have to think about putting on your gear. That's just like a second skin, right? I honestly would love to see these classes more accessible to firefighters, not making a requirement, but like making a recommendation. And I'm not saying like water down the programs, but more firefighters that are on the line, they need to take the value of hard work under stress and doing the right thing any time of day or night, doing the right thing. So, we work in these stressful environments and things can happen anytime. You need to be able to be focused and be able to detach and pay attention to what's going on. The most recent grab that we had, it was a commercial structure, 3rd floor, dirty hallway, dirty stairwell. We're tapping in the standpipe. We're not getting water because there's 3 standpipes of the building. They're not properly labeled. That's an issue right there. So my driver is hitting all 3 of them, not sure which one to hit because they're not labeled north stairwell, south stairwell, this and that. So we hear that there's a victim and, we need to make a decision. We can't just sit in the stairwell. We need to say, hey, we got a can up here. The line's not charged, but we got a can. We need to make a push past this fire or not. So there's 2-3 crews sitting in the stairwell and we hear a victim and we got no water and we're looking around, nobody could see anybody, but we need to make a decision then under stress. So I say, hey, let's make the push with the can. Let's push past the fire and let's go to where the victim's at. So that's what we did. We sent a crew downstairs to the second floor, said, hey, find apartment 214, or sorry, suite 214. That way we know how many doors it is into the third floor, on the right or the left or whatever. They come, they recon, they came back up. Hey, 2 doors onto the right, boom. Push past the fire, knock it down with the cane a little bit. Exterior crews at that time were starting to hit it from the outside. And we pushed past the fire, found the victim. And if we didn't make that decision then to make the push past the fire, God knows, like, we got to the victim and she was still conscious, thank God. But there was smoke banked down. I don't know how she was still conscious. Obviously she was a little smoke drunk, but who knows what condition we would have found her if we didn't make the push, if we didn't knock it down with the can, or make it past the fire, or do the recon, know which apartment or suite it was. We would have just been searching randomly through every suite. This is a commercial structure. We're normally going into residential homes. So different layouts, things of that. We need to be able to detach from the situation. There's an issue that's going on, but yeah, we need to focus on what we need to do now. That issue will resolve itself here shortly. We need to make a push, find the victim, and go there. Like, these classes are all about just working under stress. I mean, everybody's afraid to go to these classes. I mean, you gotta, Lieutenant Basil talks about it all the time. Just take the plunge. Just go. Just sign up. Just go. It's him saying is like, oh yeah, it's really easy, but you just gotta go. This is your job. You could, this job could kill you. So these classes make you just harder to kill.
So I'm glad you walked us through that scenario, because a couple of things tactically you said there are validating. In other words, the idea of, okay, that the issues in the third floor, the fire's on the third floor, there's a victim on the third floor, going down to the floor below to get your orientation, because it's going to be the same orientation typically on the floor below than it is on the fire floor. So going there, knowing how many where 214 is compared to where 314 is, getting the layout. It's so great to hear you say that out loud, because we train for that. It's part of our toolbox, right? The water can, I'm sure, and I don't know how many people actually are training with water cans out there. I know that as we're putting together our program for Jupiter right now, of course, as part of our program, we have a lot of guys that teach those kind of things and whatnot, but I wonder how many people is that part of their standard operating procedure, that they're bringing that with them? Because in this scenario, it helped you navigate through and find the victim. So, I'm glad you walked us through that, because, and you're right, those classes that we talk about, they're preparing us for these things under stress. They're basics, but they're preparing us for these kind of things. So, and I do subscribe to Basil's just go, like, whether it's going to a class, or here's my favorite one. We have, I talk to a lot of guys that are interested in starting up a competition team, whether it's extrication, hazmat, whatever. And a lot of them some of them I've talked to are like, well, I want to watch first. I just want to observe first, and maybe then I'll kind of put together a team. I'm like, dude, just put the team together and compete. If you fall flat in your face, you do, but you're going to learn from it and you'll get better. Yeah. Just go. So I love that you said that, because I could see him saying that too. Are there any specific memories or lessons learned or things that you took from those classes, the One Bad Tour or the Georgia Flames, that resonate with you, that you just, that the key points you took from?
I would say just your body can go much further than you think. You really think that you have a limit, and you never know until you push it to that limit. You think you're pushing it to the limit in a training or a drill or a workout or whatever. But when there's somebody there that is giving you a drill that you don't know when it's going to end, you don't know if the finish line is here or there. You don't know any of these things. So you just got to keep pushing, especially when you are tired, you are fatigued, you haven't got much sleep. I mean, those things could happen on the job. We work for 24 hours. You could be running the whole day, the whole night. And on your 23rd hour, right before you're about to leave with no sleep, a call could drop and it could be a bad call. Okay. And you need to be able to perform and be on top of your A game on that 23rd hour. It just is. And I know that I could do that, going from these classes. And I try to share that with my guys.
I like that. I like that idea that your body can go further than you think. I dig that. So let me ask you this. I want to shift gears kind of dramatically. And as the listeners listening to this, they're probably going to be like, what are we talking about? So tell us about your experience going to RN school, like registered nurse stuff. So,
that's quite the shift.
before doing that, so for the listener, most people know that I'm ate up with the job like you are, but every part of it, like the fire stuff, all that jazz, but also the medical side, I dig. I'm a nurse. I'm a paramedic guy. I love the medical side. But from what I understand, you went to school to be a nurse, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's dive into that. What would you do? Because there's not a lot of people like us that want to do that. There's not a lot of hose dragging guys that are in gear, all suited up, all the tough guys, right? And then they go, wait, you went to what school? So what drove that? What does that look like, man?
I mean, you're absolutely right. Like when my crew will tell like one of the new guys or someone coming in for the day that at the Firehouse, they'll say, he's an RN, like he knows this stuff. And they're like, what? They think that they're joking, that I'm not an RN. And it's true. I mean, for me, it was hard to cling on to the EMS stuff. It really was. I had I tried. It's not like I just gave it up and was like, whatever. But I tried to do better at it, and it just was very, very hard for me. So what better way to go headfirst into a nursing program? I mean, that right there, that is suffering right there. I mean, just going into a nursing program.
I've been there. I know.
I know. So it's, it just helped me be a better medic. It definitely didn't take me away from the fire side. I don't know if you remember this. You were teaching a lecture for company officers, and I got to leave nursing school early, and I walked in your class right when you were teaching. I was still in my scrubs. All the other guys, the captains, chiefs, and lieutenants, all the other firemen were like, "Who's this guy in scrubs walking in the class right now?" I was like, I was just like, "Don't look at me, just look forward, please." And then you called me out, and then thank God you stated that you were also a nurse, so it softened the blow a little bit. But yes, I am an RN. It definitely helped me be a better medic. So, our job isn't just fire. I wish it was, but it's not. So whatever way that I could give the citizens the best care that I can give them, I'm going to go for it.
No, you know what? We talk about it in kind of in jest, but it's true. Like I feel the same way. That additional education made me better at the job, which made me a better paramedic, a practitioner, a caring first responder. And it gave me that much more knowledge to give better care to, like you said, the citizen, the people that we're treating, the patients. And we want to do that. We want to help. And the more education we get, regardless of where it comes from, in some way, shape, or form, can help. So especially with that, I don't know what it is. I tell this story all the time, but of all the things I've done, is the goofiest thing to say, that getting that RN was probably one of the smartest things I've done. It's the goofiest thing, but it was, whether it's a side job in the future or just the extra expertise. But yeah, it's just funny because like most people, like, they look at me and they're like, you do what? I'm like, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I get the same reaction. It's my wife is a CRNA, and obviously she went to nursing school, and then she's like, hey, how about you go to CRNA school? I'm like, absolutely not. I got to stop at RN. That's good for me. Touching back on my crew, don't mean to bring up my crew again, proud captain here, but my lieutenant, he's on the EMS team. They've had 3 continuous Florida Cup wins the last 3 years. So, he's all in EMS guy and I'm all in fire guy. So like, we're the perfect yin and the yang, like I got my fire stuff, I'll hold his hand wherever we need to go. You know, when the EMS stuff comes, the EMS, he's there. He's ready to train on that, and I'll do the fire stuff. We're just the perfect yin and yang, and I
I love
think
it.
just like surrounding yourself with the proper people, I mean, makes for a better crew. Again, it's just not just me. It's my lieutenant, it's my driver. I mean, my driver, for instance, he's just a all in. That guy can fix anything. Well, the other day we had a probie, not to put us on blast, but we had a probie. He drove through a community. They were going to do a call, and the gate wasn't coming down, or sorry, going up. So they had to drive through it. You know, they had to go to this 911 call. So we showed up. My lieutenant called me and said, "Hey, we're on this call. The gate broke. Maybe you guys could go fix it or something." So we go. You know, my fireman and I are trying to fix it. We're trying to do this. Driver walks over. He's like, looks at it. No, he fixes it in 2 seconds. You know, takes a couple tools out of the toolbox, fixes it, puts it back normal. We're good to go. You know, it's being a part of a team that just want to do the right thing. There's nothing like it. There really is nothing like it.
Yeah, it's so great to hear you. I won't use the word brag, but just be so proud of the people on your team. You could feel it. You could really feel it, and it's a special feeling, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about us, right? It's about the people under our charge. It's the people that we work with, and what can we give to them, right? So it's nice to feel that. It's nice to hear that from you. But let's talk about some broader things. You know, we're coming up on I don't know where we are in this conversation, but I wanted to kind of just go up a level. So when you look at the landscape of the fire service today, right? If you had to boil it down to maybe the single most urgent leadership challenge that we're facing in terms of that, what do you go to, and then more importantly, what steps do we do to address it?
Yeah, I would say the loss of encouragement to our firefighters. You know, we're not behind our firefighters and encouraging them to get better the way that we should be. You know, I'm not saying baby them, but I'm not saying, you know, treat them like they're not there. You know, treat them with respect that they need. You know, remember that they're humans, especially the newer firefighters coming to you. They know little knowledge about the fire service. It's your job to help them learn and understand. Listen to what they want. Read your men and women. Encourage them. Push them. You know, don't push them to the brink of failure, but push them a little bit. Give them that nudge that they need in a positive way. You know, do a crawl, walk, run approach. Whenever we do a crawl, walk, run approach to drilling, it's going to give them the opportunity to succeed. You know, put them through that difficult drill, watch them succeed, and they realize they can complete something like that. It gives them a sense of accomplishment and gratification. You know, give them that push. Then that's going to carry them a long way. That's going to give them what they want. You know, what we want as company officers is competent thinking firefighters. I think if we push them a little bit to get there, they'll get there. Encourage them. I see so many times, you know, these leaders, they're asked by their firemen, you know, hey, can we do this drill or go over this tool? The company officer, it's such a shame. I've personally been there, but the company officer will beat around the bush and say, no, we don't need to do that, or we never use that, or we never do that. Or my favorite one is like, oh, it's a weekend. You know, we don't train on the weekends. You know, that doesn't encourage these firemen to want and learn or continue to get better or to ask anymore. That's just going to, you know, take a toll on them, and they're never going to ask for help, and they're inherently going to get complacent and negative. And that's not what we want competent firefighters to be going to these calls with.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm really glad you said that idea of a push. I'll be honest, I wouldn't be in the fire service if my dad didn't push me. And I look through the course of a career, and I'm wondering how many things I wouldn't have done without a nice push from somebody. Maybe a gentle nudge, maybe an all-out shove, you know. But it's okay, and I'm glad you said it. It's okay for us to provide that pressure. In fact, I'll go one step further. I think it's necessary. I think that I'm glad you said that. I think it's not something we could do it. We need to do it. We need to be. I think this could be like another conversation that could be another hour in length. But I'm glad you went there. No, we need to provide the encouragement for people, give them the room to grow, give them the length, give them the space in which to make mistakes and grow. But they need that. They need to know that, no, you need to do more. I don't know how else to say it, but I feel as if there's some that maybe just aren't maybe unaware of the need to give push. Like my old medical director, remember Dr. El Sanati?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he used to, God rest his soul, he always used to say, constant, gentle pressure. And I'm so glad that he said that, because that idea resonates in my mind through a lot of what I do, that constant, gentle pressure. And whether that's with me and my kids, getting them to push to do other things out of their comfort zone, or with my team right now in Jupiter, getting them to giving them the work, because the work's going to benefit them, not me. I don't need the work. I don't need the accolades. I don't need it. I want them to grow and them to succeed. But you're right, man. I think that a little push is not only nice, it's needed in today's fire service. So I'm glad you went there, man. So on that note, let's talk about trends. When you see new firefighters come into the firehouse these days, what are some of the trends you're seeing in some of these firefighters? And I guess more specifically with these trends you're seeing, what do we need to do to help these new firefighters succeed?
I mean, this is just what I see. Obviously, company officers throughout the country see different things, but I just see that they're not given the training they want from their company officers. We need to feed them the knowledge they want. They are hungry. Trust me, they are hungry. They might not ask for help, but they want the help. They're hungry. They want to learn. They want to get better. They just need a leader to guide them and give them what they want. It's just essentially just be better. Be better for themselves and be better for the citizens. As leaders, we need to teach them constantly. I mean, how else are they going to succeed? They're not just going to wake up one day and just, succeed. If we don't know how to do that skill or know anything about that tool when they ask us, then put your ego aside and tell them, hey, I don't know, but let's learn it together. Mm-hmm. You're going to build trust with them at that point. We also can't feed them negativity. They're there to soak up everything from you. Trust me. They're there to soak up everything. Whatever you do, they're going to do. If you change, this is going off a little bit, but if you change your mindset to being positive and really remembering why these people are calling 911, then your thought of negativity would essentially just disappear. And you go into a positive attitude. Go into work knowing you're going to be there for 24 hours and you're going to expect to run your butt off. And when you get there, you only run 10 calls and you did a ton of training and you ate great food and boom, awesome, you won. Just pretty much just don't make excuses. Just do the work and feed your guys what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not assuming. Once we start assuming, that's a problem. Even right now with this journey I'm on in Jupiter, the moment I assume somebody knows about the fire service, I'm wrong. Like if I assume that there's somebody in Parks and Rec or public, planning and zoning or HR or finance that just, they got to know this about the fire service. I'm wrong. I am 100% wrong. And the same thing you're saying there with your people. If you assume maybe they don't want to train, maybe they don't want to learn, maybe they don't want to, you're wrong. They do. Don't assume the opposite. Assume that they want to learn, and you're going to give that to them. I think that you said two things in there. One, I think your default setting is training, right? Your default setting is you're going to train your people. You're not going to assume they don't want it. You're not going to assume they know it. You're going to train them, and that's a phenomenal default setting. The other thing is, and this is the whole premise of this podcast, right? Perspectives on leadership perspective. You mentioned the citizen's perspective. Sometimes we get so caught up in the drama, the politics, the multiple calls, the sleepless nights, the tons of BLS calls, and the lack of ALS or cool calls, that we forget about them, that their perspectives, like they're calling 911, they need help, they need something. And sometimes we forget about their perspectives. And they see things, the people calling on that line are seeing much differently than we are. So I'm glad you mentioned their perspectives, because we need to focus on them. I love it.
Yeah.
So I got a couple more questions here as we kind of come to the end here, but I want to just ask these last few questions. So for you, is there anything that keeps you up at night, like in today's fire service? Is there anything that, when you think about it, just kind of gives you a moment of pause, that I wouldn't say a worry, but it's just something that dwells on these days?
Probably complacency. I know it's a buzzword, and it's a buzzword for a reason. It's very, very simple. We can never train too much for a job that can kill you or others. Simple. Boom. That's it. Right? Why get complacent? We need to fight the urge to rest on the recliners. We need to fight the norm of no training on the weekends, or we can't train after this time or that time, or there's a unit out of service, so we can't train and take a tool off the truck because we got to be ready. Or and just go out there and do it. Working 24 hours, it's tough. Running calls is tough. But when you get downtime, take that time to train and get better. And trust me, there is downtime at majority of the firehouses. I mean, you could honestly make all the excuses in the book. I guarantee it. But there's plenty of times to get after it. I mean, whether it's a long training or a quick workout or a quick line stretch in the bay, take that time to make it happen. It's simple. I mean, like going back to you can't train enough for a job that can kill you. I mean, at the end of the day, I took this quote from you. We work in order to put food on the table for our family, right? Mm. If we're not efficient and proficient at our job, we may never come home. That's a fact. It just is. If we don't know the ins and outs of our gear, of the skill level and work capacity of our crew members, and the layouts of our buildings, then we have a higher chance of not coming home to our family. Mm. Just a fact. Make yourself harder to kill. I mean, I might get a little heat for this, but everybody says that this career is a marathon. I would disagree. I mean, I think it's more of a sprint, right? It's a sprint to absorb as much information as you can, right? You could have the worst call of your career the 6th month on of your probation. You could then be 2 years on and you don't have a good company that you're working for, and you don't have a good company officer, and then you become complacent. And complacency is very easy to get. It will hit you very quickly, and it's very, very easy to be complacent. But you need to be persistent. It is worth it. Trust me. It's worth it.
I hear you, man. And it's sometimes easy to fall into that rut or that negative. It's like a temptation. It's like, it's so easy. You walk into the station, you're tired. You look at the recliner and you're like, oh man, maybe I just take a break, just for 5 minutes, whatever. But, and it's hard. It's hard to take the other path, right? It's hard to make the left instead of the right.
Oh yeah.
So let me ask you this, a more tactical type thing. Leaders are readers, right? So is there anything out there that you're currently reading or have read, like an article, case study, a book, a philosophical text that has offered you some guidance and that you would recommend, or that you're reading right now?
I would say my go-tos are Firefighter Rescue Survey. It's not a book, but Firefighter Rescue Survey for sure. Everybody should be going on there, checking all the data that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the book of search, I mean, that's just tons of negative nuggets from firemen, company officers, chiefs from all over the country. Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing that came out. That's like literally firefighter rescue survey and book of search is literally like a fireman's search for dummies book. I mean, those are, I was always, fascinated with search from early on in my career. And I wish I had that back then to review and go over. I would also say NIOSH reports. We want to get our crew home safely, and the NIOSH reports show, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we need to take nuggets from that in order to get our family home, our crew home to our family.
Yeah.
So no real big books, but yeah.
No, I gravitate towards the rescue survey and all the work that's being done by those guys over there. I like that it's validating. Like the data is showing that some of the things that previously people were either doubting or maybe not so VES, for example, when you look at the numbers and they actually validate that VES is an excellent way to rescue victims and low profile if a firefighter is getting injured or all that kind of stuff. The validation of the data is, to me, my favorite thing going through those. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I always try to pull or put nuggets out there for people to make sure if they're having the grabs, having the rescues, to put that in there so we can keep getting that rich data source to keep validating what we're doing out there. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
So like Chief Ramirez says, sorry, like you can't argue with data. Nowadays, 2026, we have all this data in our fire service right in our back pocket. We need to utilize that data. We need to utilize that data and bring it into the field.
Yeah. Shame on us for not being aware of it and utilizing it, right? It's right there in front of us.
Yeah.
So we're coming kind of close to the end here. So for you, like, what's next for you? Like, in other words, I know you're still working on some certain classes you're going into and whatnot, but for you, what does your future look like? What are you working on next? What are some challenges you're trying to overcome? What does that look like?
Ooh, great question. I would say, home life, be a better husband and dad for sure. I'd like to tackle smoke diver again. I made it to the fifth day of the second to last scenario of the class and walked away with a failure, but I learned a lot. So I'd like to attempt that again. And I'd love to just be there for my crew whenever they need me. I'd like to hopefully share some of my experiences and my crew's experiences with other members of my fire department, kind of share what we have at our firehouse and kind of bleed it into every other shift and every other firehouse. I mean, I think the citizens need that positive culture throughout every firehouse in the country. That's what the citizens call 911 for. We'll see. I don't know. There's time to do things. As far as chief position, my guys always make fun of me, but no offense, chief, but I don't see any chief yet in my future. I like to still ride on the truck and get after it with the boys.
Well, fun story. Neither did I. When I was in New Zealand, neither did I. I didn't see this coming either. So yeah. So I'm just going to leave that right there for you. You never know.
Oh boy.
All right, man. Well, listen. We're wrapping up here. So let me ask you if we can. And actually, before this, let me go through some of the notes here because I do take a lot of notes when I'm doing these kind of things, right? So I first of all, I've really enjoyed this conversation, man. I'm glad that we were able to take a conversation we were having and then put it on a platform like this so others can learn from it. Everything from the high level stuff down to the tactical. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think that, it was nice to hear your love for your crew, and it's a powerful thing. It resonates through you. And, I think that's, I think about that now with my team I'm with in Jupiter and how much I love working with them. And every day is It's rough, it's tough, it's a lot of work, but man, we leave every day going, man, not only was it a great day, we got a lot accomplished, but we got to know each other better. And we got to have these adventures and this journey together. And that bond is strong. It gets stronger every day. So it's nice to hear you kind of bragging about your team and your crew, because it's not about us, right? It's about the people we work with. It's about them. So it's all us. I'm glad you kind of went over some of the topics about training and how you kind of mix things up and you change it up to kind of keep it fresh and motivate your crews and whatnot. I love that training is not just a singular unit. It's your whole team doing it together. Everybody, you don't assume that the rescue, they might be tired, so I don't want to involve them. No. We train together. And I love that you kind of reflected that. I like when you were talking about One Bad Tour or Georgia Flames, that what you learn from that is your body can go further than you think. And it's a powerful quote. It's a powerful statement. That's something that, we have to remember that, but you don't find that out unless you try to push yourself, whether it's physically, mentally. Yeah, but I think that that's a powerful statement. Thank you for walking us through that grab you had and the little tactical nuggets you learned from it, because when you hear those things, it validates the training that we're doing. It's part of the answer to the question you had in terms of how do you increase the motivation to want to train and to want to just keep getting better. Well, when you validate it, when you literally have done it and go, oh, that's why I got to do it, because it actually works. That's powerful. I liked diving into medical geek stuff in terms of RN stuff, and I'm glad we just a snapshot. I'm glad we didn't go too deep, because people would have probably turned off the podcast at that point. But that being said, this job is so much more than just pulling lines and throwing ladders. There's so much that encompasses what we do, and the education we choose to go to makes us that much better in some way, shape, or form. So, and whether that's going to get your construction license or going to med school, for God's sake, the things we do, they help with us to get better at our jobs. Mm-hmm. I think that some of the other things you mentioned here about complacency and whatnot, and trying to fight that complacency, what is that? I guess Corley Moore is always saying that, fighting complacency on the scrap. How do we fight that? And you mentioned a couple of ways there. So, man, listen, we're kind of coming to the close here. So, as we wrap this up, is there one solid thing that comes from this conversation you'd like to drop in the audience before we check out?
Just put in the hard work. It pays off. Put in the hard work for yourself, for your crew. I mean, the citizens deserve it. That's why we're here. All
right, man. Well, that's a powerful way to end it, man. And I appreciate you jumping on me this cold morning as we, this is what, it's February 1st, by the way, we're recording this. It is the coldest day in Florida that I think we've seen in decades. And I get to wear jackets, which I haven't worn in a long time and everything. But thank you for waking up early with me and doing this. Really appreciate this, man.
Thanks, Chief. It's a great experience. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So, as I'm speaking to the listeners here, but as we close out this podcast, I once again challenge you. If you can identify something that spoke to you here today, try to put it into practice. That the whole purpose of here is how do we to deploy the things we've talked about during this conversation. So, and if you do, and if you want to share that on social media, on one of the platforms, hashtag Perspectives on Leadership, I'd appreciate it. Do continue to get phone calls and emails and texts, and I do appreciate them. They mean a lot. They validate the conversation we're having here. So thank you for that. And thank you to Alex for joining me today, man. Thank you for sharing your perspectives. I can't thank you enough for being on here. I know time is valuable, but I think your time was well spent this morning. So thank you, Alex.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So from fire engineering, from all the crew here at Clarion, thank you for listening. As always, these episodes drop on the second Friday of every month. I look forward to seeing you guys at future episodes. Also in FDIC, I'll be over there, I think on Thursday at 10:30, I think my class is at. But regardless, I'll be bouncing around all week. Look forward to meeting people. And also thank you to Chief Donato, my fire chief, for allowing me to keep this platform to give value to our fire service brothers and sisters. So everybody be safe. Enjoy the hopefully warming up weather, and we'll see you next month.